Welcome everybody to another awesome episode of WTF, and that's What the FixedOPS. I am your host, Russell Hill, joined by my co-host,
Charity Dunning.
Hey Charity, listen. We have you might get a little taste of Nico today. We'll see if he pops in and says hello to everybody, but it sometimes happens. We have a very special guest today, and that's Jay Goninen from Wrenchway. Welcome, Jay. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your podcast, your business, and what you do, if you don't mind.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. A pleasure. Always a big fan of what you guys do. I am the co-founder and president of a company called Wrenchway. We help shops kind of market themselves to technicians in an effort to really show and tell their story as to why a technician would want to come work for them. So we've got a variety of different tools where we work with shops and schools, both at the high school and post-secondary level, and technicians. So just kind of the ecosystem between everything, and a really cool business. But then on top of that, I have a podcast called Beyond the Wrench. We just talk about really how we make shops more profitable, just best practices, how to make the lives of technicians better in shops, and all things, I guess, fixed ops, and a topic that I love to talk about in general. So
awesome. What made you want to, first of all, start Wrenchway, and then second of all, start the podcast?
Great questions. I grew up in the industry, so my dad still has a small independent shop up here in Wisconsin, and I'm not involved in the day-to-days of that business, but I grew up in that business and started my life off, or my professional career off, as a technician. And I use the word technician very loosely because I was a terrible technician. I was just awful in every aspect. And so, as I like to say it, the industry kind of kicked me out of that position. It gives me, to this day, a lot of respect for good technicians because it was something that I couldn't do, right? So if you can't do, I guess manage. So I went into different aspects of the industry through sales and management types of roles. Worked for a manufacturer for a number of years as a territory rep. Then went to a construction and ag equipment dealership and ran their parts and service departments. And over the course of my career, and even from my early childhood, understood that there was a need for technicians. And so I started a company called Find a Wrench initially in 2017. And the funny part was it was kind of a play on words because my dad said when I was a kid, I can't find a damn wrench anywhere. And,
right.
What he was referring to is mechanics. So I remember hearing that at home when I was growing up, and so started a business off of that. That was more of a traditional type of recruiting service where we had a staff of recruiters. And we learned a lot over that period of time. That company grew really, really fast. But what we noticed over the course of the time was that the market was shifting, and really the leverage that technicians had over dealerships was really changing because there wasn't enough of them, right? There's just not enough people in the pot. So as we were going, and a big piece of what we did on the Find a Wrench side was posting job ads and doing different types of social media to try and capture the attention of these technicians.
Sure, yeah.
We were struggling to stand out, right? It was really hard to post on Indeed when you're in Houston, or if you're in Chicago, or if you're, wherever you're at. When you post a job ad and you're one of thousands of different job ads looking for a technician. So I actually, a good friend of mine, Mark Wilson, and I teamed up. He had a tech company called VIP Crowd before, and he had a few other tech companies prior to that, but where he was maybe struggling with some of a niche fit and had a great product. I had the niche fit, but we were searching for ways to really stand out. So we teamed up, merged our companies, and created Wrenchway and really used everything we had learned throughout the course of what Find a Wrench was in the recruiting space to be able to come up with this platform and really, really help dealerships be able to sell themselves to technicians.
When did you start Wrenchway exactly?
We launched it in 2020. So we were actually supposed to flip the switch on it in, I believe, March of 2020. And if you remember back to March of 2020, not the most ideal time to launch a platform.
Hell no.
So what we did, we had it all built out. We worked in 2019 with our dev team. We have our own internal dev team to develop this thing. And we went to go flip the switch, and oh my goodness, here comes COVID. So we actually shifted for a couple months to do something called support repair shops, where we had some of our industry partners provide gift cards, and we worked with them. So basically, people would buy gift cards from shops, and then by doing that, we're entered into win prizes that were supplied by some of our industry partners. And it was really just to try and make sure that we got shops through the pandemic, right? We took no profit off of it. There was no money involved other than encouraging people to buy gift cards from these businesses to help them provide some cash flow. And going back and looking at it, we had no idea. We were just, we knew people weren't going to be buying our services over the next couple of months because people were just sitting still until they figured out what was going on. So we just figured, we built this cool platform. We could use it for some good in the meantime. So that was short-lived. That was meant to be short-lived. And then shortly after that, we flipped the switch on Wrenchway and got it rolling in early 2020.
So it's really amazing because, we started our company and rolled out our first product in January of 20, and then COVID hit. It was a wake-up call. I mean, not just not locally, not nationally, worldwide, right? This is completely changed everything. And you talked about your growth and all that kind of stuff, and what you did to kind of pivot to kind of see your way through. And when you started seeing your way through, everything's really kind of changed, Jay. There's a shortage of advisors and technicians. Did you probably experienced that prior to, pre-pandemic, but hasn't it gotten a lot worse?
It has. And actually, I've got a LinkedIn video out there. I need to dig it up. I was thinking about this earlier. But when we were in March or April of 2020, I put a video out that said how you handle this next 3 to 4 months is going to impact the next 10 to 20 years of your business, right? Because there were a lot of people that were shedding salaries. They were cutting people. And I was sitting back and looking at that, some big companies, and I was sitting back looking at that and like, these guys are nuts. Like these people are so hard to find. Right. And so, I, in the video, was encouraging people, I think Warren Buffett always says, when you see everybody running one way, make sure you run the other. Yeah. And I think I referenced it in that video to say, hey, you got all these people that are cutting jobs. If I'm a shop at that point, I'm going after all those people to try and get them, because there's probably never going to be another time in our lifetimes where there's going to be an abundance of technicians that are looking. And we were still operating Find a Wrench at the time, and the recruiting side, and we had floods of applications coming in. Way more than the jobs that we had out there, which was awesome. Also somewhat concerning because you're like, oh no, you don't want that to happen either. But I guess the bottom line was it did change a lot of things, and it has made it more difficult. And I think the beauty in what you saw was the importance of fixed ops throughout this entire thing, right? You might have had a month or two slowdown, but after that, business came raging back. Like not a little bit. It just was full on a flood of service business, of parts business, and it came back in spades. And I don't know if anybody expected that, to happen at the rate it did. No,
and to my knowledge, the chip shortage exacerbated everything. And never in a truer sense of the word has service become essential at the dealerships, the profit center, etc. I know dealerships are making money because of the lack of inventory, and it's changed a whole lot of stuff. But I could be wrong. You correct me if I'm wrong, but the average car on the road is over 12 years old now?
Yeah. Yeah, and getting older. Yeah.
So service is once again essential. I know that for a little while there, technicians, the salaries just started to go crazy because everybody's looking for really qualified techs, and that obviously that is really, this whole thing really has benefited you because the way you pivoted and how you played your cards. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I think even before that, we could see kind of the writing on the wall, like maybe that the job boards,
so.
the effectiveness of job boards had really started to kind of fall back. And for a lot of people, including ourselves on the fine wrench level, we were very reliant on those. And that became kind of an eye opener when, what I was doing in 2017, when I first started the company, wasn't working in 2019, right? Like, so only in that 2-year span, some things had really changed the market, and it's become increasingly tougher every year. So being able as a shop to tell your story and why you're different than every other shop that's out there is one, important because you've got to stand out from other shops, but two, if maybe there's a technician that's been out there and was burned by a shop or didn't feel like they were treated well by a shop, they might think that's the entire industry. They might just say, or maybe they've been burned by 2 or 3 shops and they just think that's the way it is. And so if you can tell your story, all these shops have such fascinating stories. And in my opinion, even for their B2C side where they're trying to sell to customers, a lot of times they don't do a good enough job telling their story of who they are, because some of the history some of these dealerships have, some of the people in those dealerships, it's fascinating stuff. It's really, really good stuff. And if they just kind of opened up a little bit and told their stories, I think they'd get so much further ahead.
I do too.
So do you think, Jay, that your customer is the dealership or is it the applicants?
So we're twofold, right? It is, and that was one of the biggest struggles I had when first starting Find a Wrench, was that you really are trying to appeal to 2 different sectors, right? Mm-hmm. And they might see things through an entirely different lens. So you kind of have to hear all sides. You have to kind of balance that out. But for us, it's really 2 different avenues of advertising. We have on the Wrenchway side, for example, most of what we do with technicians is driven through an app on a phone. And so that through the app, it's kind of cool because we've got some challenges out there where we're asking for people with boots on the ground. What is your true feeling right now? Like, what do you like about the industry? What don't you like about the industry? We've got a shop talk section where it's a feed, almost an Instagram style feed of video where they can see what the different shops are saying. And it can be to their geographic region. They can see shops all across the country. And to me, it's been fascinating to see all of those people come out with video and all these shops and all the personalities. And you're really starting to see it's not just this logo on the building, but there's actually people in it and they talk and they're real people. So hearing them talk is so much fun to me. And then we do have like this, it's called reverse job posting, and it's essentially a dating app for technicians. And when I say that, it doesn't say their name or where they work, but a technician, when they go in, they can fill out the profile, and it does say their experience, their education, their certifications, and what they're looking for in a shop. In my opinion, it's so important that a technician find a right fit. Don't just go for the money grab, find the people that are going to treat you right? Like, the money's obviously very, very important, but don't make that the only thing that you're going to a shop for. Figure out the rest of it.
Absolutely.
So when they fill out the profile, it's only live for 30 days. They can renew it if they want, if they don't find a job in that time. But when they fill that out, that reverse job posting goes to every shop that's in the geographic region on our network that they selected, that they approved. So they can approve or deny shops that can see their profile, that kind of thing. So we've really gone that route with the technicians. We do a lot of content for technicians, but the shops, in my opinion, the dealers are easier to market to, or they're easier to really be able to speak to. I think that's why it's so hard to find technicians.
Well, I mean,
But-
so a minute ago you mentioned, Jay, about hearing about the good things and the bad things. What are some of those things?
It's a mixed bag. Some people love flat rate, some people hate flat rate, right? Like, I think that's always a hot button issue. I think warranty pay times are always a big issue with dealership techs. Some brands more than others, you can see trends in that regard. Some of the things they love, it's cool to hear them talk about a manager that's treated them right, or that has done them right in general, right? And
Well, you kind of sound like maybe you don't hear that a lot or something like that. Yeah.
you obviously, I think anybody, like if you go to social media and you look at a Facebook group of technicians, the negative people are going to rise to the top. And I think in our app, it's more constructive than that, right? Like where the conversations are more centered around what can the industry do to get better, right? And I think that's such an important distinguishing factor, if I can say it, is that when the criticism of the industry is non-constructive, it doesn't help anybody. But if you can actually get really, really good feedback and detailed feedback on a specific issue, then we can turn it into content and be able to, hopefully help shops be able to understand. And one of the biggest barriers that I see is getting shops to take a realistic look at their offering and who they are, right? That's I've done this presentation quite a few times and I've spoken about it in other types of content we've done, but I gave a presentation to a group of dealers once, and I've started using this more as I'm getting back out to actually do presentations again. But I said to them, raise your hand if you need a technician. So I'm in front of a group of probably, 100 people, and everybody raised their hand. And then I said, okay, raise your hand if you offer free uniforms. Everybody raise their hand. Raise your hand if you offer health insurance. Everybody raise their hand. And I just kept going through benefits. And then I stopped at the end and I said, can you guys look around? You're not that unique because you don't know what makes you unique. Like you have to, when you're putting in a job ad that you have free uniforms or that you're offering health insurance, that's an expectation at this point. Yeah. That's not a benefit. That's
we've trained them for that. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yes. So figure out what makes you unique and leverage that, because there are different aspects of every business that are unique. You just have to make sure you find them and be able to appeal to a tech.
Yeah, that's so true. It sent me down a little wormhole in my head. I'm sitting here thinking, okay, you have millennials, you have Gen Z, Gen Ys coming into the market. I know you do a lot of stuff with vocational and stuff like that. And you talked about all these things that they're really the same. Everybody has those same type offerings, but there's a big paradigm shift that's taken place out there. The expectations, and it's not necessarily about just those things that you mentioned, although yes, some of those are great, and maybe that's not anything unique because it's expected. But the newer people coming into the market or coming in, be service advisors or technicians, etc. I don't know what the average age of technicians are, but things are really, there is a real paradigm shift, and you better find some ways of dealing with a different generation that view things entirely, it's not wrong, they just view things in a different way. And I think they want something more than what's been given in the past. They want to feel like they're a part of something. They want to be included. They want to be able to know that they can contribute and give back. They want time off. They want some things that, I'm talking, late teens, early 20s. What are you experiencing with that kind of stuff, and what are you doing to pivot?
Well, it is funny that you say that. My good friend George Arentz from ASE, I've done some different things with him, and he's got a great line here. In that, in the way he says it, I can't even begin to do it as well as he does it. But he says, for all of us gray hairs and no hairs, we work to live.
Gray hairs and
no hairs. We live to work. We live to work. And and then he said, with the younger generations, they're working to live, and he said they might have it right. And so it's a little bit, you talk about paradigm shift, but that's a huge thing. And I don't even think, we pick on the younger generations right now, But say something like a career path, even that baby boomer wants to know what their next 10 years is going to look like, right? And especially their next 10 years, because it might be guiding them into retirement, right? And so I think knowing that there's a career path is even nice for that veteran technician that's been in it, or that veteran advisor that's been in it for a long time. And so, I think while we like to pick on the younger generations for this stuff, I think it's as true for the baby boomers as it is the younger generations. They want a lot of this stuff. Maybe they're not used to getting it, and maybe that's why they don't ask for it. But True. I do think they desire a lot of the same things.
They do. I think, we work hard to create a life, and I think younger people, they want the same thing, but they also want balance, something that we haven't really necessarily been able to find, working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, et cetera, taking our work home with us on the weekends or whatever it is. You find that that's starting to change what they want, because they do want to feel like they're part of, and that they count, and that they matter, and that they can contribute and make a difference. And I think, not unlike us, we want the same thing as well, but I think they need a little bit more of it.
Yeah, I think their purpose is different, right? Yeah. I think when you say they do want to be a part of something more than themselves, and they want to be, maybe a younger generation is driven by a mission as much as anything, right? Like, are you a part of something that's good, and are you a part of something that's maybe changing the world, or doing
Absolutely.
something that's not just taking a paycheck.
So go ahead, Charity.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking, I saw a post on LinkedIn. I can't remember who it was, but it was definitely a woman in automotive, and she had brought her 3-year-old to the dealership and had like a little corner with all these toys. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, what is important for me? For me, once you have kids, you have to be able to take care of them, So that's important to me. And I think a lot of families get to that point when they start having kids, that becomes part of the work environment. And especially since COVID, everything's switched to being at home now. And there's really this whole adaptation process. In some industries, it's a little harder to do that than others. But for you, Jay, do you think part of your job is to inspire young people? And how do you do it?
That's a great question.
It is a great question.
I love working with younger people. Even within our company, I feel like mentorship in general and kind of guiding them in the right direction is such a big deal, because I had really, really good mentors when I was a young professional. But even taking a step past that, working with schools, and that's something that is very core to what we do in trying to get them, maybe get a change in perception on our industry. And I know we're not alone at Wrenchway in that regard. I think there's a lot of people that are working to do that. And I think one of the big things is we've got to have confidence when we go into those schools to know that we are a good industry to work in, right? And that being a technician, or being an advisor, or being even, any part of a dealership, right? At one point there was a negative connotation to being a car salesman, right? So like,
still is
being able to,
yeah.
Still is.
No,
but no, it's something where you've got to get in there and show them, I'm very much on the service side of the business, but show them the technology that's involved, show them, how much this industry is evolving in general, because with the introduction of a lot of this electrification of vehicles, I don't even think you're doing it from the standpoint of trying to get people in, young people in. I think it's a different kind of person you're getting in, right? It might not be the same traditional, like I was when I was in high school. I probably would not be an ideal candidate right now to work on some of these advanced cars. So I think as that goes, it makes our industry more appealing to a young person if we're able to show them what it's all about and the changes that are coming, and kind of paint that vision for the future. Because again, going back to their purpose and their vision and what they want in a career, if you're able to lay some of this stuff out, we've got some pretty cool stuff coming out. Not only from the automotive side, but like the tooling side, some of the advanced diagnostic tools that are out there right now. I mean, blow your mind what some of this stuff can do. So I just think we've got to know that.
Yeah, I think it's with what. So I was talking to this guy by the name of Glenn Lundy. I don't know if you know who he is or not, and watching him on a podcast. This was out of NADA. He was talking about how things have really evolved with technology, et cetera, from 1922 to 2022. And that he believed that in the next 5 years, we're going to evolve as fast as we did in the last 100 as far as technology. Now, this creates a whole difference. You can look at them in a negative way or positive way. Really, it's all a reference and frame of mind anyway, right? You get, like what you were saying, make money on the way up, make money on the way down, whatever. People going this way, you go the opposite way, flip-flop. But so I know that unless the numbers have changed somewhat, but, people... Traditionally, we're taught to go to school, get good grades, go to college, get a degree, go to work for somebody else, and that was the American dream. Except that most of those people, now, like 92%, don't even work in the chosen field they got a degree in, and they come out heavily debt laden. So now you take a look at the younger generation. I'm talking men and women. A lot of women are starting to take notice and get in. You talked about the technology and the advancement and EV, and I think there's part of this paradigm shift is what people are experiencing is that they associate being not a technician. They don't hear or understand the word technician. They think grease monkey, and they're all oily and greasy and dirty and stuff like that. And now they're thinking, wow, I work on computers and and all this other, and that's pretty fascinating for men and women both. And vocational will handle a lot of that, and a lot of that's subsidized or even free anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think there's just the push for the trades in general has gotten so much greater in the last few years, which is an awesome thing to see.
Oh yeah.
But going back to one thing you said, I think from the technician standpoint, I feel like there's a bit of an identity crisis. And what I mean by that is I've made the argument at one point that we would have been better off just to stay as mechanics, like known as mechanics for a long time, because if you're out at a cocktail party and you say you're a technician, people are like,
what the hell's a technician?
Like, if they're from outside, what does that mean, right? Like, but if you go and say you're a mechanic, you know what they do. So it kind of stinks because I think we had a shot at just rebranding the mechanic as a whole.
Yes.
And maybe it's not as reflective as what these people actually do now. So I totally get it. But I think when we did that, you think about the different types of technicians there are. Pharmacy technicians. I don't know. You could name HVAC a million different. HVAC technicians. So if you're out and you say, okay, I'm an automotive technician. Okay, that helps at least point them in the right direction, and then it probably drives another question of like, okay, what does that actually do? And I think we kind of set ourselves back by doing that, but I totally get why we did it. And I think we've got to do a lot more branding as an industry as to what the position actually is.
Branding, yes.
So people outside the industry understand it, so that when that parent that's watching their 8th grader sign up for an automotive class when they go to freshman year of high school, or that sophomore going to be a junior, or even when they graduate high school and they're going to tech school, and that parent's like, I don't want my kid going to be a mechanic. It's like, okay, it's not quite the same as when you were growing up. It's changed a lot, and truly understanding that we've got a lot of viewpoints that we're going to have to shift in order to kind of turn. Well,
here's one of them I think that really helps that shift. When you talk about the average salary of somebody with a 4 or 6 year degree, that those hundreds of thousands of dollars versus a technician that's extremely qualified, master or otherwise. I know a lot of them make well over 100, some of them over $200,000 a year. They can't make that coming out of college with a degree like that. They just can't.
No,
it's a good job.
It is a good job, yeah. And some of the stuff that we battle against is like, if you go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, I still think it states a technician average salary being like $32,000 a year. So when they're presenting that data to a student on career day or whatever it is, it still doesn't look the most appealing. So I think, there's still some validity to that too, right? Like when you start off, you're not making the $100,000. Sure. You're maybe making 18, $20 an hour. And in some markets, it's still extremely low. We had a lady, this was at a shop in Missouri. This was an independent shop. And they tried to sign up for our program, and we just said, we're not doing it. Like there's no potential that you're going to get this person. She wanted, and I felt bad. She's an older lady. And I think she was hoping to hand this off to somebody in the shop, but she was looking for an ASE master certified technician for $12 an hour. And I'm like,
oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah.
She's like, well, we live in a really poor area. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like that's never in any scenario going to get it done. So, there's still the battle of that out there too, right?
Sure.
I mean, we still got to get through that.
And we are. I see things starting to change. Charity, you see things starting to change as well, particularly on the women's side. It's becoming, it's a man's world type of thing. There's a lot of that mentality out there, just like, a mechanic versus a technician. It's just a thought process. And I think it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think more and more women and younger people are going to come into this business with a lot of, the time constraints where they want balance, or they have families like what Charity was talking about. I have grandkids today, and when I'm not doing this kind of stuff or building our business, it's all about family and grandkids. Hell, I got 4 of them. They all live within like 7 or 8 minutes of us, and it's like this isn't like every other week I get to see them for 10 or 15 minutes. It's almost every day in some form or fashion. As a matter of fact, my wife just retired after 31 years in the car business, and she's a full-time GG today. This is what she does. She's a GG. Yeah, it's really cool. So we could go on and on about a lot of this stuff. So why did you start your podcast?
That's a good question. For me, it was somewhat of a selfish reason. I really like getting smart people and just picking their brains, right? And a podcast allowed me to be able to get an hour of somebody's time and to be able to just pick their brain about stuff that they're experts at. And a lot of it, I've learned so much. We've been doing it for, I think, about 2 years, and it's grown to be a fairly formidable podcast, way more than I would have ever expected, because I had no idea what we were doing when we went into it.
We didn't either, right? Yeah.
It's kind of a crazy thing, but for me, it was really off of selfish reasons of being able to chat with people and talk with them, and hopefully, again, going back to our core mission, which is to help improve the industry and help improve the technician shortage. It helps us, I think, give shops better ways to run their businesses and hear from experts that are doing it in a way that is really, really well done. And so being able to take deep dives into certain topics, I think, is a really big deal. And a podcast just allowed us to do that. So it's been phenomenal. I've really enjoyed it. You've been on it. I mean, we've had all kinds of people from our FixedOPS community on it, and it's just a lot of fun. It
really is, and a lot of people are doing it. So Charity, this was Charity's brainchild, as a lot of stuff that regarding marketing is, right? She's the chief marketing officer. That's what she does.
Charity's a rock star.
Yeah, she is,
she's
man.
A rock star.
Oh, she is, and then she, said, WTF? What the FixedOPS? That is really catchy, and it really is, and I know that, and now it's kind of like you, and a lot of people do it, and some have stopped, etc. Ours continues to gain a lot of momentum for a variety of reasons. We interview a lot of different people too, and one of the things that Charity always sends me, like a list of questions. Not that we're actually going to follow that or anything else, but you do a lot of interviewing, Jay, right?
Yeah.
You talk to a lot of different people, but nobody knows Jay. Not really, because you're doing most of the interviewing and stuff like that. So tell us something about Jay?
Wow, I haven't had that question in a while.
Charity again, I'm telling you.
Yeah, well, it's similar to you in that family is very important to me, and I'm married with a 5-year-old son, and as he's
What's his
getting
name?
a
What's
little
his
bit
name?
older, his name's Bo.
All right.
And Bo is starting to get to that fun age where you can do some different stuff with him. We actually bought him. I grew up racing go-karts, and so we got him his first racing
fun.
go-kart. So
What does Mom think about that, Jay?
she's still a little guarded of it yet, so we'll see, little pieces at a time. But so we're going to start that this summer, and maybe we'll see. But we've got the cart, and we're doing some fun stuff like that. And just, he started basketball practice this year, and my wife is short, and he is also very short. I'm not the tallest guy in the world either, so I can't blame it all on her. But going to basketball practice, that kind of stuff is really fun to me. I'm actually in the process of, in my spare time, restoring my father-in-law's Jeep Wrangler, 1977 Jeep Wrangler in my garage.
Nice.
Yeah, it's kind of my therapy, right? Like to go out in the garage, no phone, no computer, listen to music and work on the Jeep. So
Yeah, how often does that happen, really?
It's hard. It's hard. And I think as I've gotten older, hopefully, I'm still not great at it, but saying no to stuff, right? Like it was so hard for me when I was younger. Anybody asked me to go on a trip or asked me to go somewhere, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And I'm trying to really prioritize what I say yes to. And it's, for me, I'm very much a yes man. So I think in the past, somebody'd say, hey, let's go to this concert. Let's go do this thing. And I'd hop right along and go do it. And as I've gotten older and as my son's growing up, I kind of have tried to limit the things I say yes to.
That's a tough one. And I mean, I don't know you real well, but I know enough about you to know that you are what I like to refer to as the essence of a servant leader. You like to give back. You like to help people. And you're not doing it any other reason, but that's how you recharge your batteries a lot of times, is by helping. But yeah, there can be, particularly as your business grows and you're starting, and then you got Bo out there doing his thing and stuff like that. Then it's like you have to really start prioritizing your time, and you can't say yes. At one time, it was probably easy because you could do that. But hey, you got a company, you got a family, you got a podcast, and you got speaking engagements you're doing, and then you got people that are tapping on you for all this, and it's almost like you have to pick and choose. And I'm experiencing the same types of things. It's really hard because I've trained people over the years that when they call or send a text, I respond, or an email, and it's like. Well, how do I stop that? Well, you retrain them is how you stop that. And you have to set some boundaries. And this is exactly what I'm learning today, because I can't get to everybody. There's so much going on, and things are happening so fast for our company. And a lot of it, is because of Charity and what she's doing and getting her name out there. We got tremendous brand recognition, and our retention rate for what we do is extremely high, and we're grateful for it. But now it's like where before, when we first started this podcast, get a few people, and now we could probably, I think we're like a month and a half out right now, and we could go long, and that's doing it every week. We could probably go longer and longer and longer, but we want to do the same thing as you. We want to get different people and experts, and but also that have a particular reputation like you. They're servant leaders. They truly give back. They believe in balance and family and work life, and family, work and family. So that's real important too. We also want to convey that type of message too. It's not just about climbing the ladder of success, whatever that is. I think I have an acronym because I meet a lot of people out there that have status, Jay. They have status.
Yeah.
And here's my acronym for status. Still too arrogant to understand success.
I like that.
That's
I haven't
status.
heard that one, but I like that.
I mean, if you think about it, there's been a few times in my life where I, younger, when I was a bull, and not that I'm still not today, but I'm a lot humbler. but where I had reached this pinnacle, and by God, you little people out there, you know what? I'm the little guy. That is so far from reality. And people that have status like that, if you think about it, they don't really understand. Their ego and pride is so there. And you know what though? I've seen a lot of those people grow too. And some of them, continue on that way. And personally, their life is miserable. But people find that balance, and they understand that it's not, knock the ego and pride down. We're all human. We all fall short. We all make a lot of mistakes. And, part of recharging my batteries is I work with a lot of people in recovery and spend time with my family and those grandkids. It's like another shot of what I didn't have when the younger ones were growing up. I get a second chance, but I got to be really careful too, because we tend to spoil the hell out of them. I got to tell you.
Well, I think that's maybe the highest compliment I could get is that, right? Like the servant leadership piece has always been a big factor for me. Again, going back to my mentors and the people that I looked up to when I was a young professional, I think those were so impactful to me. And I think the coolest part about business to me are the relationships you gain, right? The people that you meet, but then the people that work for Wrenchway, we are a really tight-knit group. And it's so crazy to me to see when you bring somebody in that's new and they become best friends with somebody that already worked there. And, it really is like a family, and we look out for each other, and people hang out on their own. We don't have to force it. Like they do their own things. And I think to me that says as much about the health of a business as anything. Like when the people truly enjoy each other, it's not a grind to go in every day. You don't hate the people you work with. And that was so important to me when I started it, because a couple of the places that I'd worked at over the course of my career weren't that way. And I look back at it, and I had a boss at one point that, I was at like a director level position, and they did not want me to like interact with my employees outside of work. And I thought that was so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So somebody'd have a going away party, and you felt guilty if you went to it, and you might actually get yelled at if you went to it.
Yeah.
And it's just the weirdest concept or the weirdest thing in the world to me, and their premise or their thinking, I understand is, you might have to fire that person at some point. And for me, it's much harder to do that, even from a firing standpoint. If you have to let somebody go, I would rather have some type of good relationship with them and then have clear communication up until that point.
Exactly.
Rather than just like being cold and not even being a part of their life,
Absolutely.
That makes sense. So what are your goals for the podcast, for the company, for the next couple of years?
So we're very aspirational when it comes to the company. We want to be the place that every shop in America goes to when they're looking for a technician, and we want to be this place that every technician goes to when they're looking for opportunities, right? So very aspirational in that respect. But I think for the company, and this has been the really fun part about Wrenchway, is that the partnerships that we have now are so quality, and the people that our customers, our clients are really truly partners. And when we made that step, I think that was such a showing of maturity of us as a company. And there's nothing better than that. Like I talked about the relationships. That's another aspect of the relationships where, you're truly working together for a greater cause with our partners. And that's been great. So really from a company standpoint, that's what we're looking for. From the podcast standpoint, of course we want to see it grow, but it's so fun for me just to meet more people and to pick their brains and be able to see who they are. And I'm fascinated by other people. I'm fascinated by other people's stories and, what got them to where they're at. And that's where it's funny that you said that, where nobody knows about you, Jay. I'm like, yeah, I don't talk about myself a whole lot. Like I try not to, because I do like hearing other people's stories and I'm motivated by them. inspired by them. And I think that is just the most fun thing in the world. So hopefully we can keep doing that on the podcast and continuing to grow it along the way.
Well, I think that's the message you convey because you're inspiring and motivating to us with your story and
Oh,
where you've come and where you want to go. When particularly, you talk about your employees, your business. If the team works, the dream works, right? And
yeah.
I'm a big acronym guy, so I have another one for team. And that's together, everyone achieves more. A lot of people may have heard that. I thought everybody knew about status, but I've been using it a lot lately. And
I did not
first
know
time I
that
ever
one.
heard status, or ego is edging God out. I mean, I got a ton of them. Fail is first attempt in learning. You have to fail forward, right? You got to get outside your comfort zone. You got to chase your dream. And you're the kind of guy like us that we those are the people we want to hang with. Those are the people we want to associate. Those are the people that say, I love you, I believe you, I trust you. Let me introduce you to this person. It's all about relationships, right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
my son asked me a question years and years and years ago, one of which is about politics. I'm not going to go into today. The other one, he said, Dad, how do you know if you're making a right decision or not? I mean, how do you really know? Because I have I have a pretty sordid past, but it is in the past. But and it wasn't very good. But it had a lot to do with forming the man and the character and integrity that I have today. And it was I used everybody and everything. And so he asked me, but he never saw that side of me because I've been clean and
Right.
sober a long time. And he said, Dad, how do you know if you're really making the right decision? I said, it's pretty easy for me. When you're obviously you're making decisions that are about you and where you're going and so on and so forth. But if other people benefit around you, it's usually a good decision. But if you're using people at the expense you're the only one that benefits, it's not going to be a good decision. It's really that simple, okay? Because everybody depends on everybody else. We're all together. We like to think that we're separate and we're unique and it's like, oh, I could have done this all without charity. That's not how it works. That's called you go from what Bo is right now. He's very dependent on mom and dad. You're his
Yeah.
daddy and mama, God, whatever it is, because that's all he comes to. He for food, for shelter, for everything, for comfort, etc. And then a little bit after 5, they start to become a little independent, right? And they start saying no, and I can do this, and I don't need any help. And a lot of people get stuck there. But the ultimate part of evolution as human beings is when you and I can do so much more together than we can separately. And I think that's really important. And I see you doing that a lot by giving back and being a servant leader and stuff. You want other people to benefit along the way. It's the typical Zig Ziglar, right? You help enough other people get what they want, you're going to get what you want. And Charity's really done
100%.
that for our company as well. And I think we also, this is my 3rd company, and I must tell you, it's the best team that we've ever assembled.
It's a good team.
That is awesome. And it's so important too, right? Like, and I think you talk about your past and having the other 2 companies. And I do think there's so much to learn every day in business, right? When it comes to assorting your team and who you want on your team. And for me, a big piece of it was hiring people that filled the skill sets that I don't possess, right? The ones
Yes.
that are really smart in different avenues. And that when I first started the Find a Wrench side, that was so important to me. I wasn't a recruiter. I came from industry. I had no idea what the heck I was doing. So being able to, hire somebody that was an expert at that, and it made it tough in the early days, right? Because I bootstrapped everything initially where, I'm paying for stuff out of pocket. We're not generating a lot of revenue at that point. And
Yes.
so, I wasn't willing to sacrifice money or losing somebody over money in order to get good people in the door. And that puts pressure on you in that leadership role to be able to provide. But that became a me problem. I got to figure that part out. I got somebody else that can handle this other part. And then, we kept growing as a business, and not to say we're perfect in any aspect.
No.
We still got a long way to go, but it is so funny how much you can learn when you really kind of ingrain yourself in business and really surround yourself with good people. And I think it's, to me, going into it, when I first started the business, I had no idea what to expect. And I've got a really good quick story for you. You talk about how people grew up, with the American dream of buying a home, getting a job, and then staying at that job for 30 years. My family's very much that way. Other than my dad, who owns a shop, I was down at my dad's shop. I had quit my job at the same time that we were having Bo, right? So Bo was a preemie, came 5 weeks early. And so I wrote up the business plan in the NICU. And so then I quit.
There's something nobody knew about Jay right there. Go ahead.
I quit my really, really good job, really good, stable job to start a business. And so I was down at my dad's shop one day, and my grandpa walks in. And this is like 2 weeks after I'd started the business. And I'm like, hey, Grandpa, did you hear I started a business? And I quit my job. And he's like, yes. And the look of disappointment in his face is something I'll never forget, because he's just like, what are you doing? And my mom was like, are you sure you want to do this? And like,
so much support.
And they were all super supportive. It was just initial shock of like, well, you're leaving your really good, stable job. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And so it is a little bit, and even at first, when I first started the company, there wasn't another company like what we did. And so people are like, okay, what, like, what are you doing? Like, my friends all thought I was insane. It just, looking back at it, it's like, I was almost embarrassed to tell people that I had started a company, which is as weird as it sounds.
It was true.
Yeah.
That's, I got to tell you that, that's really inspiring. Especially from my father, the same thing. Retired after 30-something years, etc. And you get a Seiko watch, or or something like that, and then you do have some retirement, and that's great. But that never was my play at all. I was very horrible at holding jobs down. But I learned something, through all these different businesses and dealing with people, and that like the status thing a long time ago. No, I need to know it all. I need to know how to do it all. Well, you know what? It's not that way anymore. Okay, I surround myself with people that know way more than I do. That makes my job a lot easier, because I think through all the learning, I think this happens for a lot of people that do the kind of stuff that we do. You get to a point where there's about 3 or 4 things I do real well, and I think I'm just going to stay in that lane.
I saw somebody put on Twitter a few weeks back, growing up is learning that you're really, really good at 1 or 2 things, and that it's okay to pay other people to do the things that those 1 or 2 things that they're really, really good at.
Yes,
Makes
exactly.
sense.
And I thought it was brilliant. Like, I'm like, it's taken me a long time to get to that point too. And in some ways, I feel like I'm really good at knowing my weaknesses and what I'm terrible at. I talk about it with our staff all the time. I know that I'm really bad at accounting. I know that I'm really bad at a variety of different things, a platter of just weaknesses. But I do know that I'm really good at relationships, and I do know that I'm really good at caring for people, and really, I'm also a very competitive person, right? So I think, like, those elements, I know what I'm really good at, but I think I, in some ways, beat myself up, but also know what I'm really not great at. And I try to stay out of those alleys.
Yeah. And you have people that is what they're great at. That's one of the things you admire and you hired about them. And that makes you, like what you said, the team that you developed. I think the same thing. We empower employees to do a whole lot. And, but there comes a tremendous responsibility. As startup in a month, and then COVID hits, and it's like, oh my gosh, what are you going to do? Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. Charity actually, I was leaving on the right terms and finishing up and making sure, and with the stock and everything else with the company that Rick and I had before. We had another partner. We wanted to leave on great terms, but we were done. And, Cherry was hired even before I actually officially started. She's been there from the very beginning, even before we rolled out the first product. And just watching her and many other people that have come on shortly after, and how they've evolved. And we don't really get in people's way too much. We let them do what they do. because
It's the best way to
yeah.
do it.
It
And you know
really
what?
is,
It is.
especially for marketing, right? Because if you're barricading marketing into a box or going over, the email has to be passed through 9 different people, and we got to all approve
Yeah.
it, and nothing is going to get done. Nobody's going to be happy, and there'll be nothing really to do. So,
Yeah. Well, and
Well,
yeah. Go ahead, Jay.
yeah, many compliments to you, Charity. I know all of the work that you
Absolutely.
do, and I get to see a lot of it.
it's
But
fun.
it's also like we've got people like that on our team too. That like without them, nothing gets done. And I always said, if we just hired a bunch of J's in our company, nothing would get done. Absolutely nothing would get done. It would just be water cooler talk the entire day. So I can't tell you how instrumental I know that you are
yeah.
to that company, and same with our company. I mean, there's those people that are just like we can't live without them. They're everything to us.
We had no idea. It's been really great watching Charity grow, going through motherhood again during COVID. Watching our pennies as we continue to build out this company, and for her to watch her do the branding, reaching out to people, the servant leader that she is. Reaching out to a bunch of different people, a lot of the same people we all know, and to do some co-branding stuff and the things that I've heard them comments they make, stuff that they've learned from her and how she does it. And it's like we blanket social media. People know who we are. We got that brand and that name recognition, and now we've tried many times. So now we're actually doing together on the speaking circuit. We're actually going to be speaking live at Digital Dealer, which we're excited about. And who knows, maybe
All right.
maybe the next Digital Dealer after that, and Tampa. We think we got something. We got a message just like you do about what's going on. And we're very passionate about what we're doing. I'd like to, I know we're getting close here, but how has EVs affected you and those types of people coming into the market? Tell us a little bit if you could.
So this is funny to me because I don't even think we've started to see the impact quite yet, right?
Not
It's
even
obviously
close, yeah.
changed in terms of tooling and that kind of thing. But I think what dealers need to be aware of is what companies like Tesla, like Rivian, they're run like tech companies. They are tech companies that offer, that have cars, right? And we've got to get out in front of pay. We've got to get out in front of benefits, because if they start offering technicians the same thing that they're offering a lot of their just a normal, like a developer, it's going to change the game 100%. And I think it's coming. I talked to a person probably a couple weeks ago that is pretty close with the Rivian folks, and talked about what they're going to be offering techs, and she's worried about the dealers and their ability to keep technicians, because when they roll out their programs, it's going to have an impact on us. It's going to have a great impact on us. And one example of that is something simple, but out of each billable hour each month, they're going to give so every billable hour they set aside a certain amount of money, right? And it's not probably a lot per billable hour, but at the end of the year, they give that money to them as a vacation fund. So it's not offering free, that paid vacation. It's actually paying their vacation based on how many hours.
They're thinking out of the box, right? Yeah,
they are.
Yeah.
And I think for our industry, I think it's probably good to push us a little bit, right? To try and open our minds and see what else is out there. But this is coming. Like, it's not like it's a tomorrow thing. It's happening right now.
It is.
And for these dealers that are struggling to get techs right now, it's going to become much, much harder over the next 4 to 5 years. And as these companies get more respected, I think if you look at the evolution of Tesla over the last 5 years and the amount of respect that they're getting, still think even up to a year ago, maybe they weren't getting the respect from the automotive world.
Well, they're damn sure getting it now, aren't they?
Garnered. They are now. Yeah,
Listen,
they are now.
I heard from somebody, I learned a lot. We recently, an energy, Infinity, isn't that what it is? Infinity
Energy.
Energy.
We had them on last week.
It was phenomenal about power and storage and the dealerships and stuff like that. 25% of all vehicle sales in California is Tesla, and they don't even advertise.
Yeah.
Incredible. All that's coming. I agree. And you're in the perfect spot for that kind of growth too.
I think so. One thing I would ask you is, how do you think this affects dealers? So when I say that, knowing that Tesla doesn't have true dealers, they skate around some of the rules in terms of what dealers are supposed to be able to do. And I wonder how that impacts a General Motors, or how that impacts just a traditional dealership.
Well,
and I don't know if I've got the answer for it.
Well, according to Infinity Energy, those manufacturers are jumping on board and producing their own electric vehicles, up to like 25% of the new models.
Yeah, more so not but the direct to consumer model. And when I say that, they need the dealerships for service, right? Like they need them for the repairs. But I think one of the things I worry about is that they're starting to get around it, right? Like in Madison here, I'm in Madison, Wisconsin. A friend of mine left a Toyota dealership and went to go run a Tesla store. And it's concerning to me because I do think it changes a lot of stuff. And granted, I think the dealer networks have the protection to be able to stand up to it. But I don't know. I don't even know the best way to phrase this, but I am a little bit worried about like direct to consumer model. And
well, we're gonna learn a lot about. Listen, I remember when websites first came on the scene. I was running a dealership in 1996. Okay, we're talking about high-tech AOL dial-up modem, baby. That's what I'm talking about, okay? And that's what it was back then. And this company came out called AutoBytel that provided internet leads, okay? And it was incredible because, and you had to pay, and they had protected territories. And I would say 8 out of 10 people that we got a lead from AutoBytel bought cars. I mean, it was almost like solid gold. But everybody was going, "Oh my God, life is over as we know it. Everything's changing. Nobody's gonna come into the store." Oh, I think the same thing here. We're gonna learn. There's a big learning curve, and I think the manufacturers are starting to figure that out. Hell, our company is starting to figure it out. We also have EV stuff now and landing pages and to educate the consumer and stuff like that. And they're crying, and the technicians and the advisors going, "Oh, what are we going to do? How are we going to make money?" Well, let's worry a little bit about stopping the 36 to 39 month defection and holding on to those customers, and it won't be that big a deal, right?
No, I agree. It's not the first time this industry has shifted. I think it's just more rapid adaptation that's going to be required. But yeah. I think I know we're safe. I know we're in a good position. And even if you look at the average repair order for an electric vehicle compared to an internal combustion ICE vehicle, maintenance probably won't be as important, but the average repair is going to skyrocket. Like it's not cheap to fix these things.
No, I think everybody better get back into, and I see this happening too. Everybody needs to get back into the tire game because these lightweight, low profile, high torque vehicles they chop tires up. So there's a good opportunity
yes, they do.
Coming back to your store. That's just one example. I'm laughing this off and playing like, the direct to consumer type thing. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I think we're all secure as long as we keep our eyes open. Here's the thing, an opportunity is not an opportunity when everybody thinks it's an opportunity. They've already missed it. So if they're 5 years down the road thinking like some of us are thinking today, I'm sorry, they're going to be out. They're going to miss out on the whole thing because there's going to be a lot of... Think about what I said earlier about that I happen to believe. I heard this guy, from 1922 to 2022, in the next 5 years, we're going to advance 100 years in technology. It is insane. I mean,
is.
they didn't even start recording revenue until 1997 on the internet. That was 25 years ago.
Wasn't that long ago.
I know,
Yeah.
right? And anyway, this has been really, Charity, any final thoughts?
Jay, it's been great having you
Oh,
on.
yeah.
Great to get your perspective. We're so used to hearing you as the interviewer.
Yes.
And don't get to hear much about Jay. So we appreciate you coming on, and I just want to offer you, if there's anything you want to tell the audience, anything you want to share, any events coming up or anything, you have the floor.
Well, thank you for that, and thanks for having me on the podcast. This has been a lot of fun, and yeah, it took a little deeper thinking there, and I love having those almost philosophical type of conversations, just because I think it's always interesting.
Yes.
As for what we've got coming up, we've always got different events coming up. You can go to wrenchway.com, and we've got an events page of different types of content we do. The podcast is out there as well. You can get the podcast wherever. It's called Beyond the Wrench. And then we're very content focused. So, we typically do a different roundtable each month, or webinar. We do something each fall called Technician, where we just kind of pull the entire industry together. That includes technicians, dealer principals, just people from all over the industry together. OEs, we've had a lot of OE participation in those, to talk about pressing issues, right? Things like this that we just talked about today that are concerning, but we adapt and we change and we make it work, right? So I think for us, it's just we always have new stuff coming out. It's always housed out at wrenchway.com. Go check it out. If anybody ever has any questions or wants to get into deep discussions like this, I love getting into these types of discussions. So feel free to reach out to me.
Well, we're glad. We're glad to be able to have done it and get a little bit more of the inside servant leader. Everybody, thank you, Jay Goninen, from Wrenchway. Thank you very much. Another successful WTF, and that's what the Fixed Ops. And listen, be sure and like us on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and who knows all the other platforms Charity got us on. It's great. And check Jay out and Wrenchway and all the really extremely valuable stuff. And if you have particular needs, this is the guy. Now you know he's a real guy. Okay, his son's name is Poe. He grew up doing go-karts. And, he likes working on stuff in the garage when he can get away, whenever that is. And he's assembled a great team. Jay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.